Every virtual meeting is a decision about who gets heard and who gets ignored. If you have an expression gap, the default answer is you get ignored. If you have an authority gap, the default answer is someone else leads. The strategies for fixing each are completely different. No theory recap. That was the previous video. This is the intervention. Virtual meetings sort people fast. Within the first 2 minutes, the room has decided who's contributing and who's background noise. Your gap type determines which side of that sort you land on by default. But here's the thing worth knowing. Both defaults are reversible, not with personality changes, not with better lighting or a nicer camera angle. With specific behavioral calibrations matched to what the screen compression removes from each gap type, better production quality doesn't close a perception gap. Targeted behavioral adjustments do. If you have an expression gap, here's the core principle. In virtual, if you're not narrating your processing, the room assumes you're not processing. 3 specific techniques. First, slow your pace by 15 to 20%. In-person, speed conveys energy. On video, speed conveys anxiety. The camera reads differently than the room. Second, narrate your processing explicitly. Say, what I'm taking from this is, or I want to sit with that for a moment. In person, a thoughtful pause reads as contemplation. On video, a 3-second pause reads as connection loss or disengagement. Without a verbal frame, your audience literally cannot tell the difference between deep thinking and a frozen screen. Third, name the frame before the silence. I'm going to take a moment with that. This single sentence converts dead air into visible thinking. It makes the internal external. Notice the pattern in what's on screen. Every behavior that served you well in person gets reinterpreted on video. Thoughtful pause becomes connection loss. Neutral face becomes disengagement. Quick answers become anxiety instead of energy. The camera doesn't lie, but it does translate. And the translation is rarely flattering for the expression gap leader. These verbal framing techniques aren't about performing energy. That's the common overcompensation, forcing enthusiasm that comes across as inauthentic and is exhausting to sustain. Instead, you're making the processing that's already happening visible to an audience that simply can't see it through the constraints of the screen. The thinking is there. The visibility wasn't. Now, the authority gap. Completely different problem, completely different intervention. The core principle. In virtual, authority is structural, not spatial. Physical presence markers are gone. What remains is how you use the first 90 seconds, how you use screen sharing, and how you close. First, own the opening 90 seconds. The leader who orients the meeting names the decision, the time available, who's accountable, before others fill the space, set structural authority. This isn't about talking first, it's about framing first. Second, screen share discipline. Sharing your screen when visual focus is needed, removing the share when decision focus is needed, that's using screen as a strategic tool. Presenting 45 minutes of PowerPoint is transferring authority to the document. You become the narrator of someone else's deck. Third, close with a decision statement. Not a consensus check, a direction. Look at the contrast on screen. Does everyone agree? Surrenders authority. It invites renegotiation. It signals that you need the room's permission to proceed. Based on what I'm hearing, here is what I'm taking as direction. That claims authority. It signals that you've listened, you've synthesized, and you're ready to act. Same meeting, same content. Completely different presence outcome based on one sentence at the close. And if you notice the proving leader pattern showing up in chat, contributing heavily, answering every question, filling every silence, that's the authority gap reasserting itself through a different channel. Activity is not authority. Structure is Here's what I want you to do. In your next virtual meeting, try one move, just one. If you identified as expression gap, narrate your processing once. Say what I'm taking from this is, and watch how the room responds. Do they lean in? Do they engage with your reasoning? That's the behavior landing. If you identified as authority gap, own the first 90 seconds. Name the decision, the time, and who's accountable. Watch whether the meeting follows your frame or someone else's. One move. See what shifts. I want to be clear about what these are and what they're not. A leader with an expression gap doesn't need to become an extrovert on camera. They need to add verbal markers to processing they're already doing. The processing is there, the visibility isn't. A leader with an authority gap doesn't need to become commanding or domineering. They need to use structural moves that replace the physical anchors they lost. The authority is there, the structure isn't. These are behavioral adjustments calibrated to what virtual compression removes from each gap type, nothing more and nothing less. Expression and authority gaps have specific virtual fixes, but there's a third dimension that most virtual presence advice ignores entirely, the context gap. And in virtual, the context gap has gone underground, literally into DMs and side channels you may not be monitoring. That's next.